June 1944, east of the Marianas. Japan's mobile fleet sails to meet destiny as Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa commands from Taihō. This is the greatest carrier duel in history is about to begin. American intelligence officers already know Ozawa's fleet is coming. As alarms echo through steel corridors, fate stirs in Japan's mighty fleet. Radio decrypts from the Marianas traffic reveal call signs, routes, and objectives. Operation A-Go is no longer a secret. American Task Force 58, under Admiral Mark Mitcher, forms a vast hunter's net across the Philippine Sea. 8 carrier groups fan out. Above, carrier crews stand by for launch. Below, submarines wait in ambush. In the depths, USS Albacore glides silently through a shifting thermocline. Sonar pings, vanishing into layered water. Commander James Blanchard wipes condensation from the periscope lens, his breath steady, measured. Through the narrow eyepiece, he spots a colossal shadow. Taihō, Ozawa's brand new pride. Target acquired, he mutters. Torpedo tubes flood, gauges rise. At Blanchard's quiet command, compressed air hisses, and moments later, a distant thud reverberates through the hull. And deep within Taihō's steel hull, disaster brews in deadly silence. To the south, Shōkaku powers through open seas, engines roaring for one final strike. Below the surface, the USS Kavala tracks her every move. Captain Herman Kostler watches the sonar display pulse, and then fade before sharpening again. The Japanese carrier is directly overhead. At 11:22 a.m., Kavala fires 6 torpedoes. Shōkaku's hull erupts as aviation fuel ignites, turning her hangar into a furnace. Bomb-laden aircraft detonate one after another. Captain Kaku Takuya fights to keep her afloat, but the flames rage uncontrollably. Her list increases sharply. Men leap overboard, swallowed by burning oil. At 11:40, the Shōkaku rolls to port and sinks bow first beneath the waves, her ensign still flying. And while Shōkaku burns, Japan's unsinkable flagship begins to suffocate from within. And even as Taihō burns, the skies above erupt in fury. The Taihō was Japan's masterpiece and the first ever carrier built to rival the Americans' modern giants. But steel couldn't save her from human error. When Albacore's torpedo struck, damage seemed minor and the crew was relaxed, unaware fuel vapors were leaking into lower compartments. Fans meant to clear the fumes only spread them through the ship. Panic rippled through untrained men as the stench of gasoline thickened. Below, mechanics worked by flashlight, one spark too many. At 2:30 p.m., the inevitable happened. The explosion ripped through the Taihō's core, blasting her armored deck skyward. Smoke towered thousands of feet into the air. Captain Kaku and Admiral Ozawa were thrown into chaos, Ozawa surviving only because he'd been topside, later pulled from the sea by Wakatsuki. By now, Japan's naval pride had vanished after barely one mission. But high above, hundreds of aircraft are still locked in combat. Below the chaos of dogfights, one carrier's struggle is far from over. The morning sky over the Philippine Sea turns into a slaughterhouse. American radar operators aboard Lexington and Yorktown pick up incoming waves more than 100 miles out. Controllers vector squadrons of F-6F Hellcats toward the threat. At 10 a.m., the first Japanese formations appear, disorganized, outdated, and flying straight into disciplined American intercepts. The Hellcats cut through them with ease, diving from altitude and tearing apart the formations before they reach the fleet. Radio chatter fills with calm, methodical kill reports. By noon, more than 300 Japanese aircraft are gone. For every American lost, 10 enemy planes fall. From carrier decks, US crews watch flaming wrecks crash into the sea, an air arm that took years to train, erased in hours. It's brutal, efficient, and one-sided. Pilots returning to Lexington coin the name that will define the day, the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Yet one final carrier, Hiyō, still fights on, unaware of her fate. As the flames consume Hiyō, The rest of Ozawa's fleet drifts into ruin. Hiyō fights a losing battle against chaos. Her decks are slick with fuel and seawater as exhausted crewmen try to recover the few strike aircraft that make it home. Engines roar, cables snap, men scream over jammed arrestor wires. Then, out of the clouds, comes a single American torpedo bomber from Belleau Wood. The torpedo hits just aft of the port engine room. The detonation ruptures fuel tanks, igniting a chain of explosions that rip through her lower decks. Flames surge upward through elevator shafts, engulfing aircraft still armed with bombs. Within minutes, Hiyō's flight deck becomes an inferno. The ship heels sharply, smoke rising thousands of feet into the sky. Men leap into burning oil, their uniforms aflame. By 5 p.m., Hiyō is gone, another carrier erased from Japan's dwindling line. The sea around her boils with debris and fire. On the horizon, Ozawa's shattered fleet struggles to gather what's left afloat, and amid the smoke and confusion, the ocean itself becomes Japan's final enemy. Admiral Ozawa stands on Shōkaku's bridge, eyes fixed on the burning horizon. Reports come in broken bursts. Taihō exploded, Shōkaku sunk, Hiyō gone. Radio operators shout through static, unable to separate distress calls from silence. The Imperial Navy's proud armada, once the master of the Pacific, now drifts in disarray. American aircraft wheel overhead, marking targets through the haze. Dive bombers swoop and peel away, hunting stragglers among oil fires and debris fields. Below deck, officers debate whether to continue the fight or break off entirely. At 6 p.m., Ozawa finally gives the order: retreat northwest. The last surviving carriers, Shōkaku, Junyō, and a handful of destroyers turn away, leaving behind burning wrecks and men still clinging to rafts. For the first time in the war, Ozawa really sees the scale of the disaster, the Empire's shield shattered in a single day. But beneath the waves, silent witnesses record the Empire's downfall. In the fading light, the victors stare at ruins too quiet to cheer. Then the submariners emerge from the depths with their periscopes slicing through a sea of fire and wreckage. USS Albacore and USS Kavala surface briefly, their crews scanning the oily horizon. Messages flash between them in coded bursts. Targets confirmed. Both carriers' sunk men lean against the rails, watching the aftermath drift by. Half-melted life rafts, splintered decks, and fuel slicks stretching for miles. They know what they've done. The ships they destroyed weren't just steel and engines, they were Japan's last hope. In that moment, victory feels both immense and hollow. The Pacific rolls over the wreckage and erases it all, and above it all, fading sunlight reveals the ocean littered with ghosts. Night falls, and the once mighty carrier fleet fades into darkness and silence. Darkness settles over the Philippine Sea. Fires still burn on the horizon. 3 carriers lie beneath the waves. Radio silence blankets what remains of the Japanese fleet. There will be no counterattack. On Shōkaku's bridge, Ozawa writes his final dispatch. His words will reach Tokyo long after the wrecks sink beyond sight. For the Imperial Navy, the age of the carrier ends here. Across the ocean, US crews record their victories but speak little. They've witnessed not just the destruction of an enemy, but the death of an idea that Japan could still command the Pacific. The Pacific remembers, even when men choose to forget.